something a little bit different. I've got another top 5 list that I created, and this was based on a suggestion that someone made on one of my videos about doing a top 5 Leonardo DiCaprio films. So I have a confession to make about Leonardo DiCaprio and me, and that is he's not really my favorite. Like, a lot of people really like him, but I've never really cared too much for him at all. So, I mean, his performances have grown on me over time, but he's like one of those actors that just hasn't sparked a lot of interest in me. Even though his talent has definitely gotten better as he's gotten older. So I had some trouble trying to come up with a top 5 list of favorite Leonardo DiCaprio films because he's not an actor that I gravitate toward. I just don't really care for him all that much. So I was able to finally get something together. Some of the films, he's not like the main star, but he's in the film. So I called that a Leonardo DiCaprio film because he was in it. And but some of these films that I chose, well, I would say there are some films missing that maybe a lot of people would choose as their favorite, but they just didn't happen to be favorites of mine as far as just the overall story. And some of them I just haven't seen or haven't seen all the way through. So I can't include that. But let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start at number 5 and work my way down. So number 5 was The Quick and the Dead. I like the overall story. This was the first, I think this was one of the first Russell Crowe movies that he made here in the States, I believe. And I found that out because I watched The Quick and the Dead years ago, and I've only seen it once all the way through. But I had read that Sharon Stone, who was the main character in this movie, this particular Western, that she was pretty crucial to getting Russell Crowe over into the American, entertainment scene. I found that interesting. Anyway, so Leonardo doesn't have a huge role in this. He is pictured on the poster. He was quite young when this was made. I do believe this was after Titanic. I couldn't tell you now the year this came out. I don't remember because I didn't watch it until many years after it had already come out. But it's been many years since I've seen it. But Leonardo wasn't in here a long time, he was a more minor character as far as his presence on the screen. But because he's in it, and because I actually did really like this film, more than I thought I would, to be honest, I ended up putting this on my list at number 5. So, number 4, The Man in the Iron Mask. I remember when this first came out, and I got the DVD of it, I still have it, and I watched it. I've watched it multiple times. It's just that it's been a long time since I've seen it. So basically, in this movie, Leonardo plays 2 people. He plays twin brothers in here. And one of the brothers is just an awful human being, as you can see by the face he's making. This is the bad brother. And the other brother is not awful. And I liked it because it surprised me how much I would like it. I guess I should say, it's not necessarily that some of these movies on my list are spectacularly great movies, but when I watched it, I had fun watching it and I enjoyed it more than I expected to, or I just went in with like no expectations. Okay, I'm just going to watch this. But anyway, I remember that when shortly after it came out and, was available, because I didn't go see it on the big screen, but when it was available to home audiences, I watched it several times actually, and would watch it, with family members. And it's been a good long while, and I feel like I would like to watch it again. And this is basically a story of the 4 Musketeers. 3 Musketeers. Well, there's 4 of them in this movie. And so it's about this king he's like the king, and he's just a horrible human being, and he has, like he's imprisoned his twin brother. I believe it was him that did that. It's been so long, I'm a little, fuzzy on the details. He imprisoned his twin brother and put him in this iron mask because I guess he felt like he was a threat to his rule. And it involves, the Four Musketeers and trying to help the guy that's imprisoned in the iron mask. And, fairly decent film. And so I'm going to now move on to number 3, which was Inception. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Inception, and I really only ended up putting it on this list because I was having trouble finding other films to put on this list. And I put it at number 3, I think more so because it was one of the more recent Leonardo DiCaprio films that I had seen compared to 5 and 4. In all honesty, except for the number 1 film, films 5 through 2 are kind of interchangeable. There's no real hierarchy with regard to, I like this better than this and whatever. But Inception, it was a Christopher Nolan film, and it was very mind-bendy and trippy and everything. But I've only seen it once all the way through. And that was on the big screen when it came out, which has been a few years now. I liked it. I wasn't supremely blown away by it like I had been hoping and figuring that I would be. And a lot of people really do like it a lot, but it just wasn't. I think I bought it, but I have not even taken it out of the wrapper. So I haven't seen it since the first time. Maybe it's worth another watch, but it just wasn't something that totally blew me away, surprisingly. But I do like it, and it is, one of the Leonardo DiCaprio films I've seen that I do like. There are just not a whole bunch that I had to choose from because I don't think I've even seen most of what he's been in, to be honest. I'd have to go and refresh my memory now from when I made this list up, but I really have not, I haven't seen Shutter Island. I haven't seen The Departed. I haven't seen Romeo and Juliet. I absolutely hate Titanic, and I have seen that, and I cannot stand it. So there was absolutely no way that movie was going to be on my list. So anyway, that was a tangent. Let's move on to number 2, which was Django Unchained. So for a while, I sort of put off watching this because I got a bad taste in my mouth after some things that I'd heard Jamie Foxx say, and I felt I really didn't appreciate, some of the stuff he said. I felt like it was a little bit, racist toward white people, and I was not appreciative of that at all. But then eventually I did, I like Jamie Foxx okay. One of my favorite movies he's in is Collateral, and he was really good in that. And then, it was like during the promotion of this film, and I was like, I don't like a lot of the race baiting crap that goes on, you guys. I just can't stand it. And I feel like it's so highly destructive, and it just really is a huge turnoff to me when people start going down that route. But I did end up watching this. My cousin had it, and one weekend when we were up there visiting, he played it, and it was surprisingly good to me. I didn't think I would like it, just because this subject matter just seems so terrible and awful and just sad, and it was just like, oh, I just don't know. But it was comedic, and I didn't expect it to be so comedic, and oh my goodness. One of the most hilarious scenes to me was the scene with when the stupid Klan was, I guess they were supposed to be the Klan, and they were going to do this ambush on Django and his the German guy that I can't even remember that guy's name. The character's name. They were going to do an ambush on them, and it was just showing how completely idiotic these people were. And it was, I just never forgot that scene because it was so funny, and And it was not really a funny situation, but they were so ridiculous that scene just stuck with me. And it was at that point when that scene happened, I'm like, okay, this movie's actually not too bad. It's pretty good. I mean, yes, there are some very serious elements to it, but there's so much more comedy woven into it than I expected. And because that was such a surprise to me, and because it was so well done, the acting in this story was really good, that I was like, okay, this is actually really dang good. I like this movie. And Leonardo DiCaprio, he played a baddie in here, and he was really good as the bad guy. And of course, there's the infamous scene where he slammed his hand down on the table and actually did cut his hand on the glass, and they kept rolling. And so it's interesting to watch that now, knowing that he really had hurt his hand when he did that scene, and yet he continued on, which shows, he's able to keep things pretty well together, even when something unexpected and wrong has happened that wasn't supposed to happen. And yet it was one of the more interesting scenes in the movie, just because of what was going on. It was getting very tense during that particular scene. So that's why that is my number 2. So moving on to number 1. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So this movie, another Tarantino. I like his movies, okay? You know what? I think I've seen, for many years, I think I had seen all of his movies except for Pulp Fiction. And I didn't see that until last year, a few months ago. So I think now I've seen them all. And this one I saw last year when it came out, 2019, and it was really good. And I remember at the time, though, when I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, well, this is kind of more like a slice of life movie. There's not much going on. So it's definitely slower paced. It's more slower paced than Django Unchained. It's like a slow burn. And you follow Rick Dalton and his body double. I think it's Clint. I think his name was Clint. And most of the film comprises a day in their life, and with flashbacks, kind of. So it's really drawn out. And there are some elements of, Sharon Tate shows up, and because they're neighbors, Rick Dalton, Leonardo's character, is neighbor to Sharon Tate. They live on Cielo Drive, and his house is here, and hers is like up the hill or something like that. So you don't see her in there as much, and there was some talk about, or complaints about, the way women are treated in this movie. I didn't pick up on anything like specifically bad about the way women were treated. There were complaints that Margot Robbie wasn't in there enough. She didn't get to speak enough. But the problem with that complaint is this was not her movie. This was not a movie about her. Yes, there were elements of the Sharon Tate thing, but that's just a sort of a side thing. This movie was a focus on Rick Dalton and how he was having to come to terms with the fact that Hollywood was changing, and his role in Hollywood was now much diminished. He'd been this big star, and now things were changing, and he was having to reconcile with those changes and how it was affecting his career. And it was also, a buddy movie. I mean, he and his body double Clint were really good friends, and so it followed like a day in their life, like Leonardo going off and filming this scene for a movie, and he's having trouble. He's not quite spot on with his performances, and he's very mad at himself because of that. And one of the most hilarious scenes in the movie, not counting the stuff that happened at the end, which was so awesome, and it was so worth the payoff of just sitting through a lot of this slice of life stuff, was the scene when he went to his trailer to take like a break in the filming because he was having trouble, and he's so mad at himself, and he's cursing at himself, and he's yelling at himself, and he's throwing his alcohol around. And first he says he's going to quit drinking alcohol, and then he's so mad he swipes up a bottle and he starts drinking more, and then he slams it down. What? I said I was going to stop drinking. That scene was so freaking hilarious. I could watch that over and over and over. It's so funny, and it was so well done. He did a really good job. in that scene and in the whole movie. I mean, he was good in here, even though, like I said, he's not really my favorite. He's grown on me a little over time, but you know, and certainly his talent has gotten better. So there were other films that he's been in that had been pretty. Oh yeah, you know, I had mentioned I didn't see Shutter Island, and I didn't all the way through anyway, and I didn't see The Departed. And I have not seen The Aviator because I know what it's about and it just sounds so freaking depressing. And I haven't watched it. I don't know that I ever will, but I heard he did a really good job in that movie, and I believe it. And I haven't seen The Revenant. Just like I said, he's not an actor that draws me to a movie because he's in it. If I'm interested to see a movie that he happens to be in, I'll watch it, not because Leo's in it. But anyway. So that's my list for top 5 Leonardo DiCaprio films. And, you know, I feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's the best list, but it's the only one I honestly felt like I could come up with realistically, given my limited amount of appreciation for him as an actor and just a lot of the movies that he's been in. So anyway, what are your top 5 Leo films? I'm sure it's going to be quite different from mine, but I have a feeling Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is going to be in the list of a lot of people, especially if you're a Leo fan. I don't see how you could not appreciate his performance in here. And so, yeah. Okay, I can't think of anything else to add to this or say. I'm gonna try to come up with some other top like top 5 or top 10 lists. Someone also did ask me to make do a video of my top 10 movies of all time, and I have referenced that list from time to time throughout some of the videos on my channel. And now I need to go down and actually set it in stone for now anyway. The list changes from time to time, especially towards the bottom of the list. Some movies kind of slide in and out and rotate around. But my top films are pretty well set. But I'm curious to go through and actually write it all down and get the list together. But I don't know when that video is coming. It's just something that I would like to do. So, okay, that's it for this one. I'm going to wrap it up, you guys. Hasta luego.